Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another AP Sports video. Today I'll be talking about the New Orleans Pelicans and what they should do this offseason. Now, this is a very, very big offseason for the Pelicans, potentially the biggest. And that is because Zion Williamson is already unhappy, and it is only his second year with the team. Now, I've seen players like Anthony Davis leave the Pelicans because they were unhappy, but he was with us for about 7 years. So it's a different scenario with him. Losing Zion potentially without even extending him for his rookie contract would be just such a devastating loss for this Pelicans team, especially after losing Anthony Davis. I think that hurts the allure of the Pelicans, like as even as a free agent destination, like incredibly. I actually don't think ownership is that bad. They've invested a lot into these coaches. They've paid two coaches for the last like 3 seasons because of how frequently they've fired coaches recently. This is not something that ownership has supported in the past. They had Monty Williams for several years. They had Alvin Gentry for several years. So they're clearly showing a new commitment, and I'm appreciative of the ownership. But management has been pretty bad. David Griffin, let's start with him. I don't know if I'm necessarily a fan of his. He has made poor decisions throughout the course of his tenure in New Orleans. The Pelicans do have a pretty large cache of picks that I mean, I guess I appreciate, but like that's not necessarily on him. That's Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis both kind of requesting trades. So I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that. Plus, he also in that trade traded away a first round pick and George Hill for Steven Adams. George Hill is a very good 3-point shooter. Pelicans needed spacing. They traded him away, and they got Steven Adams, who doesn't space the floor at all. I don't think Adams was awful necessarily to start the year, but he did suffer some injuries that kind of set him back. Eric Bledsoe, on the other hand, is just awful. I think he is the worst starting player in the NBA and definitely the worst starting point guard. He's bad at just about every aspect of the game, and he should be good at defense, but he doesn't really try, and he makes a lot of dumb errors. So David Griffin so far has been a big miss. Missed on Stan Van Gundy too. Awful hiring by him. So I'm definitely critical of him right now, but I'm hoping he can turn it around. And I really think the one thing I do think he's done a good job of is building a team around him. I like Trajan Langdon a lot. He's the general manager. And then Swing Cash as well as in that front office. And those three this year are making the decision on who the next coach is. Gail Benson made that very clear, the owner, that it will be a team decision this year. Last year was more just Griffin. So this is going to be Zion's third coach in his third year. Brandon Ingram has had 4 coaches. It's kind of crazy. There has been so little consistency through both Zion and Ingram's career. And they're the cornerstones of your franchise. You want them to be comfortable. And all this change is not helping that. The franchise has been basically uprooted and flipped over like 5 different times, it feels like, in the last 3 years. So the new guy they're going to hire naturally is a big change. He is totally different than what Stan was. And right now they're looking at young guys who had careers in the NBA or in Euro leagues, which is good. They're going to be personable. They're going to be hopefully decent at X and O's. But if you're going for this, I don't understand why you didn't go for it the first time. You knew Stan was going to be older. You knew he wasn't going to be quite as personable as some of these guys. You know he wasn't necessarily a player's coach. And Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson seem to be unhappy with him. So I don't know where that hire came from or why it happened. But this year they're looking at Willie Green of the Phoenix Suns. He's on an assistant for that staff. Charles Lee's an assistant for the Bucks. And Fred Vinson is an assistant for the Pelicans. Now, Fred Vinson would be nice just because he knows the guys already. So that's like the coach that's going to be the least amount of like shock, I guess, like when it comes to consistency. So he may be nice, but he's also worked mostly in player development. He hasn't really done a whole lot of X and O's. So we'll see if he's the coach. I understand it, but I don't necessarily know if he's a head coach yet. I would see promoting him to a new like higher level assistant. I don't necessarily think head coach is the spot for him based off, I mean, what I've seen. I just haven't seen a lot from him, whereas these other guys seem to be more X and O's than they are player development. Although I don't doubt that they're good at both parts of it. So Zion's unhappy. One player that he was happy with this season was Lonzo Ball. He really likes Lonzo Ball. So does Brandon Ingram. They both like him a lot. I personally do not like Lonzo Ball. Nothing like I don't dislike him as a person, but as a player, I dislike him a lot. He's very inconsistent. Now, any player that takes almost strictly 3-pointers is going to be inconsistent. And Lonzo Ball has so much potential to get to the rim and score and be consistent in that facet of the game every single night. He's an improved free throw shooter, so he shouldn't be scared of shooting free throws. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's injuries that are holding him back from driving the ball, or if it's just a general lack of confidence. But this season on pick and rolls, he would be wide open for layups and he would pass out of them just because he would get like scared or nervous, or he's just always thinking pass when he should be thinking, I'm 6'6" and I have a big frame. I should be able to lay this up. So that was concerning for me. I don't think he should necessarily stay. I also think the Pelicans have great young guards on their roster. Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Kyra Lewis in particular, who they've drafted in the last 2 years. Nickeil is averaging 20 points as a starter, and I very much so believe in Nickeil. So much so that I have several of his cards, sports cards that I guess I invested in. I mean, I just also like Nickeil a lot, so I bought him. But I think he has a super great future. He's got nice touch around the rim. He's a great passer. He can get a little too confident at times with the shots, but I'd rather someone be confident than scared when they're shooting. And that is what Lonzo seems to be most of the time when he's in the paint. Josh Hart's another free agent. I hope we keep Josh Hart. He's a great hustle guy. He's got great spirit. He's got really just a good feel for the game, I feel like. He kind of sees stuff coming before it happens. And he's honestly just a cannonball going to the rim. I really appreciate his attitude and just general positivity on this team. I hope he stays, but I think he's probably going to go elsewhere. It sounded like he wanted a change of scenery. At least that was a rumor this offseason. Hopefully that just means a change of coach because we did that. So I hope he stays. I don't know contractually what he's going to be pulling, but I feel like both of those guys are guys the Pelicans could potentially sign and trade just because each guy has so much allure from other teams. All right, now I'm going to get into some trades potentially. This is the most interesting part of this offseason. So the nice part about the Pelicans is this team has 13 first-round picks in the next 8 years. And over that same span, they have the second most total picks, which is pretty crazy considering the amount that the Rockets got for James Harden as well. So they have a lot of picks. And with those picks and the young talent they already have, I feel like they can make a very big move, whether it's moving up in this year's draft or going out there and getting a superstar player. Now, you may say this is a little early to do this. Ingram and Zion are still very young, but the real deal is they're both unhappy, and you want to make them happy. And honestly, I think Stan Van Gundy would still be coaching this team if they were happy, because all they want to do is win, at least is what it sounds like. It's hard to not be happy when you're winning. And they have not been doing a lot of winning. So if you get a player that knows how to win, then that would be massive. I think that guy is Damian Lillard, but let's talk about the number one overall pick first. So recently, the Pelicans were in rumors for the number one overall pick. I personally think that is Cade Cunningham. Now, if this trade's going to happen, Brandon Ingram would likely need to be involved. I don't know if I love this, considering that you haven't really seen Ingram and Zion play together offensively. This last year, Stan was a pretty bad offensive coach. The Pelicans' offense basically consisted of either scrambling and hoping the defense makes a mistake or playing isolation. Now, that doesn't benefit Zion or Brandon Ingram in any sort of dual action or anything like that. So you haven't seen what you can get from that duo. But if it's to get to the number one pick, I think Cade Cunningham can score at all three levels. He's a very fluid player, and he's good defensively. He's also 6'8", which helps a lot. B.I. is relatively the same height, a lot lighter, not quite as good defensively. He's clearly more established in the NBA and is going to have a better feel for the game immediately. But I think if you compare Zion and Cade, that's going to be pretty impressive. And then, even if Zion is still unhappy when his contract is up, you have another franchise player that you can rely on, especially for less money than Brandon Ingram, who's on a 5-year max contract extension. So, also, Damian Lillard. He's the next guy I want to talk about trade-wise. Trading for Damian Lillard, if he's made available in any stretch, you have to get him. You have the second most assets in the entire NBA outside of the Oklahoma City Thunder. You have an incredibly high amount of picks, plus you have Brandon Ingram you could throw in there. you don't have to beat anyone else. You have the most. So go get Damian Lillard as long as you keep Zion Williamson. If you can keep Zion and get Damian Lillard, that team is going to be borderline unstoppable. Now, the issue with the Pelicans this last year is they blew like 15 double-digit leads. If they don't blow those leads, they are in the playoffs by a pretty decent margin. That's like, they would have had a winning record. That would have been fantastic, but they didn't. They consistently lose games. The Blazers this year won the most games that were decided by like a few amount of points or something like that. I don't really know, but they won a ton of games late in the game, and it was mostly because of Damian Lillard's clutch scoring. Now, if you pair him with Zion, especially with Zion's dominance in the paint and Damian Lillard shooting from outside, I don't think there's any chance that this team is not a top 5 seed in the Western Conference. There are lots of great teams in the West, but this team would be fantastic, and basically just on those two players' shoulders. Even Damian Lillard alone, these last couple of years, has really propelled the Blazers. I know C.J. McCollum's there, but Zion Williamson is a level up from C.J. McCollum, in my opinion, and complements Damian Lillard better. Now, those are the two big trades that I think could happen. But honestly, some smaller moves, potentially to pick up a shooting wing, I feel like could be something that happens. The Pelicans this offseason wanted to focus on really just shooting, I think. Corey Kisbert's a guy that's been mentioned at the 10th overall pick. I wouldn't be that mad. I wouldn't be like super happy just because I think defense is also something that needs to be addressed. Moses Moody, I think, has the best potential to be a good 3-and-D wing at the number 10 overall pick. Good Lord. James Bouknight is a guy that kind of reminds me of Nickeil Alexander-Walker a little bit. He's a great player, great touch, great scorer. I would like him at the 10th pick, and then Davion Mitchell, if he's there. He's a little bit older, but he kind of fits the timeline of this team at that 10th overall pick. So if you keep the 10th pick, those are the guys I like. They've got 3 picks in the second round. It's an incredibly deep draft, so I wouldn't have an issue taking, an older guy in that second round who you think should be more established potentially, and he slid a little bit. I don't think there's a lot of room for error for the Pelicans this offseason. But with that being said, if you're not trying to make a big splash, or the big splash isn't available, if the Pistons are asking for too much for Cade, if the Blazers aren't willing to trade Damian Lillard, there's nothing wrong with using your picks in this draft. This is a very deep draft, and you can even trade picks that we have from other drafts to move up in this one, or grab another first-round pick this year. I think that this team, if anything, building through the draft is not a bad option. And you have holes you need to fill, but I don't see them, this team is set up to be successful in the long run with the young pieces they have. So they need the coaching and they need the management to pick it up because the players are clearly talented enough to be there. And as long as you don't start Eric Bledsoe, I honestly think this team wins about 10 more games this year because lots of their losses were just that close. They blew a ton of leads. And if you get guys that are going to be better and are actually going to try, I think that this team's potential is a playoff team this upcoming season. And at least that's what I'm hoping for as a fan. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Let me know what you think about those trades. I'm really hoping the Damian Lillard one is possible at all. I don't think they're going to let him be available, but if the rumors are true and he is becoming available, the Pelicans should pounce on that immediately. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and peace.